So things will get better. It's going to improve. We are seeing multiple offers here and there on the juicy priced properties. And that's our recommendation is you want to be pricing properties with the juicy price.
Welcome to the Million Dollar Magic Podcast, where Jennifer Jones talks to industry leaders in the real estate world and beyond. From scaling businesses to manifesting health, wealth, and happiness. It's time to unlock your next level of success.
Have you been dealing with multiple offers and don't know what to do? Because this is something that we're seeing that's popping back up within our real estate industry, not only in Ontario, but across Canada, and there's parts of North America. So any home that is what we call like the juicy price point will always have more activity on it, potentially multiple offers, get sold faster, and for the highest possible dollar that it could. That is fair market value. The neat thing about that, when you price them with a juicy price, then you're getting all the serious buyers that maybe lost on another listing. They're going to be the ones that come to the table first. They come and view the property quickly. It's usually in your first couple of days. So ultimately, the most serious buyers are typically the ones that roll out on a listing and come view it in that first couple of days. And we want to encourage as many offers as possible in that time frame. So the importance of this is understanding then when you've done that and you've been able to create these multiple offers by having this juicy price point. And what I say is the juicy price point is the price point that for the listing agent, what is that price that I myself would say, oh my gosh, I need to go buy this home, right? So if it doesn't feel like that in this kind of market, it's going to be a difficult thing to accomplish having more than one offer. As the market goes up, which it will, we've been fairly flat, but once it starts to go back up, that becomes an increasing trend of multiple offers, and we are seeing these with properties that are juicy priced right now. So how do we handle that? Well, from a buyer agent perspective, there are things you need to do if you're bringing a buyer to a property that is either having an offer date where there is likely to be multiple offers, or it's just such a great price, that within the first day to 2 days, it's going to go multiples. So you want to educate your buyer first, ask them the question, what do you think this home would sell at? And you need to give them basically a buyer analysis of that property. If they're serious about it, you're going to need to show them what other properties have sold that would be considered comparable. Hopefully you've been through those homes, so you know if there's one that sold a little bit under, maybe it smelled like smoke, maybe it had just a really messy neighbor. There's other things, of course, that can impact value, but you want to determine with your what that price is likely to be on the property that they're going to go see. So you need to do this quickly. The second thing you're going to do is make sure that if they're serious, you've got a broker copy of an MLS for that property that you're going to send to their mortgage broker. Their mortgage broker, if they've already been pre-vetted or in the process of, is going to be able to tell you, sort of the highest possible price they could pay for that property, and also the mortgage broker's opinion as well on potentially value if they're able to do an automated value, an AVM. So you want that information prior to going in. Now they'll go view the property if they're wanting to move ahead. I'm going to try to arrange a pre-inspection, which is usually a half an inspection, kind of those major hit items, the structure, the roof, your furnace, your AC, your windows, like just doing really the bones of the house. And you're going to do that quickly. So generally you'll pay half the amount of money. So it might be a couple $100 to do a pre-inspect, but ideally you want all your ducks in a row if this is the home that your clients want. So you pre-inspect it, you now have some sort of pre-approval, based on the value of the house and also what your client's affordability is. So you know what that higher number is that they can go to. You're going to want to talk to the listing agent, find out what is more important. Is it price? Is it closing date? What's going to be high value to those sellers? When you're going through the property looking for things like if there's two people on title, Are there both men's and women's clothes in the house? Or if it's two wives, are there two wives, items in the home? Check the fridge, because there's sometimes indicators that they've actually already moved out, and there could be a bigger motivation than just a regular seller or someone who's, let's say, testing the market. So you're going to go through, talk to the listing agent. I would recommend the book Never Split the Difference with Chris Voss. He's an FBI negotiator. He works on how to have conversation with other people to extract, the details of what you need, how to build rapport. And I think that's super important as a buyer agent to be able to have the rapport with the listing agent. If you like someone, you're more likely to want to do deals with them. If you come in as a difficult buyer's agent, being, an adversary, it's not going to be as easy or smooth a transaction. So those are things that I would recommend. On the listing side, if this is what you're targeting, you're going to put the juicy price on, it's in an area where things, could take off. You could end up with more than one buyer wanting the property. You need to get your ducks in a row. Making sure that you're serving proper notice as offers come in. So as one offer comes in, you want to make sure it's registered. You want to make sure you have enough time that, let's say there was a showing this morning at 9, an offer's come in, it's irrevocable 5 o'clock, but I know I have showings at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. I'm going to reach out to those agents that book later in the day and say, hey, we do have this offer. Did you want to move your showing up a little bit during, in the day in order to get in prior to us presenting? All right. Or if I'm not as thrilled about the offer that came in, maybe I'm going to ask them to push it out to 9 o'clock at night, something like that, where I have a little bit more time to work on generating offers. So you register each one as they come in. You need to communicate with all the agents that have either showed the property, expressed interest, or have future showings on the property, even the next day. You need to let them know it's in. You let them know what time you're presenting. And then you are going to let your sellers know that you have an offer that's registered, but you want to wait until you have ideally all of them together before you go back to a seller, right? And so you also need to let the agents know when there's a second offer registered. You need to let the first agent know there is a second offer. They need a chance to improve. And again, you have to let everybody know there's now a second offer. You let your seller know there's a second offer. This is a constant communication, or you're going to be in violation of our rules from our RICO board, and you are likely to be slapped with very high fines if you don't communicate this properly. Now, how do you communicate? Is a phone call enough? No. It needs to be in writing. So you could call, you could text, but I would also email and make sure that they know how many offers are registered, when it's being presented, all the things that are important at that time. And let's say we have now a third offer that comes in and we're now close to presenting. So something you want to be letting the agents know is this going to be a one-time shot, or are they going to have the opportunity to improve? Most times now people would have the opportunity to improve. If there's a little bit of time, even 5-10 minutes, we can generally get things signed off. Um, you know, that's super important to be able to communicate what that is. You want to make sure that you're getting absolute top dollar for the property. So the other thing to make sure that you're communicating to buyer agents is, are we in multiple rep? Meaning, is this someone else from one of my, an agent from my brokerage that has an offer? Is there two REMAX agents that are from the same franchise? Technically, they're now in multiple rep. So that has to also be communicated. The other thing that has to be communicated is, are there commission adjustments? Did anyone take the 2.5% and change that? Because that is a material thing that would potentially affect other people's offers. That also must be communicated in an offer. So as a listing agent dealing with these offers, once we have them all in, I'm going to create a Coles Notes version. I might have, a spreadsheet going. What I'm going to do is put down who's the agent, so I know what is the price offered, what is the deposit, what is the closing date, What are they asking for in terms of inclusions, exclusions, because that could affect a seller dramatically? What are the conditions of the offer? Are there any conditions? Are there anything, any clauses where we need to modify words? So what I'll do is go through and I do a Coles Notes version. I go offer one, offer two, offer three, and I do a Coles Notes version for each one. I attach each offer to that email. I send it off. We'll jump on Zoom and we go through. And then, of course, the next question, typically from the seller, there might be things we're adjusting. If we get two that are close, sometimes if we get the price right, they all come back pretty close. And then we're going to go back to the agents and say, okay, you've got, 20 minutes. We're going to give you a chance to improve. Is there anything you want to change? Most times people come back and improve something. And so again, we go back, I'm going to, put those details in. I'm going to present again. And let's say I have two offers now that are pretty close. I'm going to go back to both of them and I'm going to ask if either one is willing to improve. After the second or third time, there's usually one that is standing out. And so at that point, if my seller is happy with that offer, we've got everything dialed in. Let's say there's a couple of changes that we need to make to something. I'm not going to, at that point, make the changes and send it back to an agent in multiple offers to adjust and send back, because now technically I have one in play. I'm going to say to that agent, look, if you change these things on this offer, then we would be able to accept the offer. So I'm going to push it back on them to make those changes. They send it back in, and now we accept that offer. Now I have obligation to reach out to the other agents that have submitted offers and, say to them, this is the toughest part of the job. We appreciate your offer. We appreciate your clients. And we're sorry, that unfortunately the sellers have chosen to go with another offer. And at that point, if I don't have a deposit in hand from that buyer agent, which ideally I do, then I'm going to let the other agents know, okay, we're just waiting on deposit. And at that point that we have the deposit in, then I will let you know what the sales price is, right? So let's say it was conditional. Let's say I'm in multiples, but it's going to be conditional for a couple of days. I'm going to let them know that too. Okay, once the deposit's in, I let them know, all right, this is actually conditional for 3 business days or 5 business days. I'm not going to communicate that there's conditions on the offer until the deposit's in. In a worst case scenario, if it turned out that the offer that came in, we're waiting on deposit and they don't bring it, okay, I don't want to be tied, situation where these other agents think that this was a firm offer. All right, I want to go back fresh. So that's the important part, is not communicating too much information until you have a firm deal. That's when you've got the deposit actually in, if that makes sense. So multiple offers, very important. It's super important as realtors that we know how to handle this. If you don't know what you're doing, you need to reach out to someone else, a broker, someone around you. You need to be doing that to make sure that you're handling this properly. It can cost you a lot of money in fines. It can cost you, more courses that you're going to have to do. And it will obviously create issues with your seller or the buyer's agents, where then they can take you to your governing body. You can end up in lawsuits. Maybe it could have sold for more. Maybe you've made a mistake. So just super important that you are communicating all the time and understand how to handle this. Very important that you don't fabricate an offer and register it, okay? Because if another agent called you on that and now went after you to prove that, RICO is going to go after you. They're going to ask for your phone records. They're going to ask for text messages. They're going to ask for emails. They're going to ask for the FinTrack. They're going to ask for everything for you to prove what that is. You don't want to put your license at risk by fabricating offers. It's not something we do. Quite frankly, that would be a reason in the past that realtors haven't had a great reputation. So I think it's super important that we all remain squeaky clean in the way we present, make this a fair playing field. And yeah, the last thing we're going to talk about, which we talked about it with our team meeting this morning, was letters. So let's say I have a buyer and I'm going to be in multiple offers, would potentially have the buyers write a letter about what this home's going to mean to them, about their family, about what it's going to mean to them going forward. And maybe they include pictures. From a listing side, I would never present those, just so you know. So, as a buyer agent, that would be something that might help me if I'm dealing with an agent that maybe doesn't have the experience. But I can tell you, as a listing agent, you never want to put your clients at risk by bringing in emotional things into the conversation when they're selling a property and not necessarily getting them top value. Because buyers will sometimes tell stories as well about what the purpose might be for the property, or just something about themselves that isn't a truth, in order to actually get the house. And then after the fact, if your seller finds out that they didn't indeed move in like they said they were going to, they in fact leased it out as an investment property, they might be really upset at you. So my advice to you as a listing agent: never, never, never present those letters. I would only present the letters and have it sent through with an offer if I'm a buyer agent. But the smart agents, the ones with experience who've learned, will never include those letters in their presentation to a seller. It's a business decision. It cannot be an emotional decision for a seller. And you have to understand that our job is to play chess and achieve our goal, which is to get them the highest possible price with a firm deal in the shortest amount of time. All right. That's going to be the objective of every single seller. From a buyer's perspective, absolutely. Write the letter, put pictures of the dog in and the kids, and make it an emotional thing, with full integrity in everything you're doing. So I hope that helps. Just super excited for all of you. Things will gradually improve. We've been in a lower market for realtors in the Ontario area for 4 years. There's other parts of Canada that are feeling that, and I know all through the US as well. It just depends on where you are. There's some pockets, more affordable price points, where those areas are a little bit hotter. So things will get better. It's going to improve. We are seeing multiple offers here and there on the juicy priced properties. And that's our recommendation: is you want to be pricing properties with the juicy price for your sellers to help net them the most amount of money with the fastest sale time possible.